Hello again and welcome to another episode of Throttle Stop Garage. Okay, in this episode we're going to actually do a little rework. I hate doing rework, but I can't get this the pedal box to actually work right on the car. I'm stuck a little bit, so this is going to be episode 31. If I'm not mistaken, that's where it should pan out, provided everything in the next few days goes as planned. But what we're going to be doing is cutting out the driver's floor and redoing it. So I removed the driver's floor because of a little rust issue before. And the pedal box then goes in and it's been up and down the firewall as you've seen. It's now sitting in its final resting position up against the transmission tunnel. The transmission tunnel's done. In order to get the transmission tunnel in, the pedal box has to actually go in for the final time. So firewall and everything has to get cleaned up. So it's ended up going up the firewall a couple times, up the firewall. And that means it's not sitting on the rail. I'd always intended it to sit on the rail. Now there's a heavy plate that fits on the frame rail that the pedals sit on. So there's, I'm following the manufacturer's instructions with that. But the box itself that encloses the pedals is actually a little taller than that. It's 3/4 of an inch actually. I thought it was less than that, but it ended up being more than that. So I didn't like that. And then I ended up I can't remember what episode it was, but a long time ago I ended up making a little sheet metal part to fit the gap on the floor. I have to put a false floor in the car anyway because floor mount pedals need that to get your pivot point up right on your where your foot hits the pedal. So because of all these things, I convinced myself that this was okay, and then upon further review I looked at it and I just further started hating it. I was adding the blister or the shelf on the floor because the pedal box had gone up and the floor was tilted down, and that down tilt in the floor was just too much. I didn't know that when I fixed it. Again, I cut the part out. I thought I was going to the original spots. I just missed it by a little bit, which ended up with quite a lot of tilt on the outbound side, so it's tilted like that. And why don't I just fix the floor? So if I fix the floor, a lot of these problems, they don't go away, they just present in a different form, but one that's actually manageable. So let's go inside the car, have a look at what the project is for this episode. Right, so there's the little shelf part that I made to fill the gap. Now the gap is that right there. So there's the gap. So this slopes away. Right here, I've got the frame outrigger that comes out to the B pillar or the A pillar is right here. So that's fine. And if I took a straight line across, right, I could intersect that panel pretty nicely. But, just trying to get things done, I'd shaped this part and done some other whittling around with it. And, it goes up and in if I can get it to go. And, yeah, sure, it fits nice and it would be just fine. And it probably would solve my problem immediately. And then I could use that space and, pop a false floor up over top of everything, and hey, everything would be great. But these are just little things that just sort of eat away at me. Again, if I fixed the floor properly, then I wouldn't need any of this, and this is patches on patches, and I don't tend to like that in my sheet metal. So if we cut it out, originally I cut the floor out right here, right, and then it sort of jogs over. If I just cut it out to where I need to cut it out, there and then up. I haven't really decided on that final cut line yet, but I'll decide in a second when the plasma comes out. Then I can just take it up the firewall here a little ways to where I need it, right? And then put the joining pieces back together, fold it over again, and do a lot less work actually. And it'll be a much neater looking job underneath the car. And I would like it to be a much neater. No one looks underneath your car, but the weather looks underneath your car. Okay, so let's have a quick look underneath the car. All right, so here we are under the car. You can see the pedal box is sitting off of the frame rail. It's sort of hard to do this with the flashlight, but there you go. Now, I'd pulled a little skirt down. I'd cut into it and pulled the skirt down to cover that over, and again, that'd be fine. And then I was going to make a patch panel to go and cover all of that in, and it was going to be, again, patches on patches on patches. So this all started to it just was eating at me. So I didn't finish it, and I do that oftentimes, right? If it bothers me, I kind of walk away from it for a little while. I suggest you do the same. And then eventually I figure it out. And I'm usually happy with the solutions then at that point. But here you can see the other issue that would have happened over time. How was I going to close all this off, right? I got the floor here on the right-hand side and the patch on the left and the frame over there. And like, how was I going to shut in this great big hole? Well, you know, bend and add a little bit, whatever. But it's always going to look like I hacked it up. So I think it's just going to be a whole bunch better if I just cut all this off, lower the box to where I need it. I am going to have to modify the pedal box. That's just where it fits. So what we'll do is section the bottom of the box off just above the roll, just above that radius curved corner there at the bottom. And we'll just bend. I have to hold 3 things at once, so I don't have enough hands here. But what we'll do is we'll cut it here across to there, right? And then down there. So we'll cut that off and then just continue this angle down and then just build another radius piece that fits it tight. It'll actually be a good deal smaller because I can then mount the box to the outside of a repaired floor rather than having part of the box going to the inside of the car, which is the way it's actually metalwork to work right now. Okay, so with that being said, let's get on it and get to work. All right, so the plasma is going to come out again, and wow, all that work putting that floor in, gone. Just gone. In about 2 seconds out it goes. So that's of course, the quick and dirty way of getting rid of a floor. Alright, pedal box goes up and in for another fit. Just to get some distances and things as the frame comes back and in place. Just check it, thinking about it one last time before we get ready to make the final decision. Alright, so now get brave with the wheel of death and just chop the bottom of that panel box off, and then we'll have a quick look at getting it laid out on the sheet metal here. So a few lines, a couple of cuts, and away we go. More sheet metal magic, just getting a few bend radiuses actually. I had to carefully evaluate what the bend radius was so I get the bend right. You'll find out in a minute. I put the bend in the wrong place anyways, so all this work is really a bit of hubris, but it's fun. I got it right the second time. Not done, just tidy up a few edges, tweak a few fitments. That was where I had to fix it. Make a couple of bends. Super handy to have this little gap in the bench actually. I don't have a finger brake, or a pan brake. I have a bricklaying chisel and a gap in my bench. It works just fine. Just takes a second to get it done. Laying out another cardboard template this time to template something that's sort of a negative space, right? How big's the hole? I'll just knock a little radius onto that panel just to help it look a little bit better. Okay, there you can see what I've done. I took that piece of cardboard and cut the width just so it fit exactly inside of the of the sheet metal part. Now that the part sprung a little bit open when I cut the bottom out of it, so I'm not too worried about that. But just trying to get some general shapes. So you can see how much the miss was here. So that's pretty substantial, right, in terms of distance. So I now know where that plane is. So that's going to be nice and square against the frame. That part there, I'll just seam it up and cut it. It won't be a problem. And then I just use tape to work out the sides. So that's where the filleted pieces need to go there. That'll be all fine. Again, this curved cardboard, you can see some of the issues there. I had to use some steel inside the car to flatten it out so I could kind of pick up that reference point properly. there's the sheet metal part that will replace it. Get some of this stuff out of the way. There's the mistake I made there. I showed you in the stop motion. That wasn't, there was no error on the sheet metal there. It was an error in the calculation. I just forgot to add the bend radius in. So I had to flatten this out and then move the bend radius. It's fine. You'll never see it. No one will know I ever did it except for you. And then the work I was doing with the T-dolly there was to add that little curve here. Now, it's not perfect yet, but we'll keep working on it a little bit. And that actually picks up the frame rail. Okay, so the frame rail actually has a bit of a curve that this is going to run into, and then it goes straight into the rest of the part. So I wanted that, hey, if I'm going to redo it, I might as well redo it with every single bit of jankiness that's in this thing. So we'll get that cranked around here. I'll take the pattern off of the old part, put it onto the new part, and then cut it to the tape lines. And we'll leave it a little big, and then we'll fit it all together, see how she works. Well, sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you try. The garage may not be about productivity, but it might just be about therapy. So yesterday I built this part, right, which you just watched me build, and it was sort of doomed from the start, right? I put the bend in the wrong spot. Then I went to assemble the whole thing and tried to get it in there, and you know, it just wasn't working out. There was just elements of it I was going to have to fill some bigger gaps than I'm comfortable with. I mean, I could do it, but I don't want to. I've got lots of sheet metal. Sheet metal's cheap, right? So just do it right. So I actually use this as a template. Now, this is why I hate rework, because if I'm doing it the first time, I'm probably going to get it closer to right because I'm not worried about trying to fit other parts, and you just sort of craft the part and away you go. That didn't work out, so then I created this part, which I did exactly in the same way, really no difference. But you know, I took a few measurements for the angles. You know, that might have been a smart move. So 50 degrees it was. So they're closed up really nice. I put that little curve back in, doing the same techniques. It's the right distance right off the hop, and it will fit to this part. So this part gets welded to this part, and then the whole thing goes back in the car. It sits on the frame really nicely. Real happy actually with the way that it is all fitted up. It just took the better part of a day to get this much progress. So we'll can't wait till I hit something on this project where I'm actually allowed by forces of nature to make progress better than one very small step at a time. But hey, one small step at a time still gets you finished at some point. Okay, so just to finish this off today, we'll get that part welded on. I'm not going to weld it on. Well, I scared myself there. We'll get it probably just, we'll get it tacked in place and held in with the clecos again. Looking forward to sort of moving along on some of the other parts of the project, getting the rest of that trans tunnel, or I guess the driveland tunnel. The trans tunnel is done. But we're moving. It's just, again, every once in a while the motion's very slow, and the project just won't allow you to make what seems like progress to anyone. Like even out from the outside would just, they come into your garage and they'd say, geez, you know, you haven't really done anything on your car. And you're like, but I've been out here for how many hours now? You know, you might put in 30 hours in a week and it still looks like you're getting nowhere, but you're getting somewhere. And I always say good time in the garage is better than good time in therapy, right? So take it for what it's worth. A good friend of mine actually the other day reminded me that garage is not about progress. Just, you know, garage is about being able to be out here and create and do other things. So don't worry about the progress if you don't make any on your project. Every little step is a step that has to be taken, whether it's a step backwards or a step forward. So enough philosophy for today. Let's get back to work. All right, so now it's time to get the new floor, or new bottom, I guess, put on that pedal box. So you can see that I'm pretty fussy with the fit up of this kind of stuff. But then again, I've already built this part how many times now? I think this is the 4th time. So I hope it's the last time. The more careful you are with your sheet metal fit up, the better the welding is going to be. So you're going to watch as I actually left most of it in today instead of cutting all of it out, just to show a little bit more detail on how I'm pulling off some of this stuff. I'm only doing this with a MIG, by the way. I got a TIG welder, as you all know, sitting in the corner, and I don't know, sometimes I just like doing things a certain way. It's going to show you that if you only got a MIG at home, you can do that quality of sheet metal work as well. So the first step is to get it all tacked in place. And yeah, I've got the airline out for the tack, and then as you tack it, of course, the tack is going to shrink. So the first step that I do is then I grind the tacks off. So you tack it up, grind the tacks off very carefully. Don't grind the sheet metal, just the tack. That gets it back to about the same thickness as the metal is. If you can reach the inside, even better. And then I go in and I tap on those tacks to take away the shrink. So I stretch the tack. So each one of those areas then gets stretched back out. And then the fit stays really tight. I want that fit really tight because, again, it makes the weld go a whole lot better. There's no great big gaps to fill. It's just there's just a little gap, not even a 1/16 of an inch. And then you can weld with little stringers. You have to go really, really fast to do it. So here I've already got it welded up, actually, and we're working our way on. And anyways, it finished up nice. I lost some footage there, so I had some photos at the end. Now I'm laying out the floor part. Just get that floor part finished up. Just love this tool. It's like my favorite sheet metal tool. Now there's lots of little tricks that go on here in the stop motion, so you have to sort of watch real carefully to figure out what it is that I'm doing. I have to watch real carefully to figure out what I'm doing. So there, I've laid out all the frame. I know where I've got to put a step. I've got angles and flanges and little things that have to go in. So I got the bead roller out here, and we've rolled a little flange in it. That's going to sit on top and give me a little bit of reference spot there to let the frame member actually come up into the floor just a little bit. And I'll put just a little bend line in it. That's the angle that goes out to the floor, or out to the A-pillar. Now I've got to put in the flanges. So again, over to the brake. And I just start the bend. And then I use that piece of railway clamp tie there, and very carefully just go and raise that flange. So that's easy. Now there'll be a test fit here at the end, and now I've gone back into the car, and I know I need a little flip up there to get to the firewall. So then I've just added the little flip up. No problem there. And then back to the bead roller, and now I need to tip the angle to cover off. Now a bunch of that gets cut out, of course, the pedal box fits into it, but I wanted to tip that up, and then of course tip it up, and it makes it pretty sharp because I don't have a wider tipping die. So I just, with the little flipper there, a little bit of hammer work, I just matched some radii and fixed that all up. And some final cut to size. Okay, so I've added my little step in here, just the last little bit on the bead roller. And then we're going to end this episode with how it all worked out. I actually lost some footage here, folks, so sorry about that. But this is a wrap for episode 31. There's the panel there. There's the foot box in. Nice. Look at that. Looks great. Bottom fits really nice. And then there's the finished product with all the pieces in place. That's where the car sits right now. Haven't welded any of this in. We'll get to that in a later episode. Thanks again for tuning in.